Okay, in the last video we looked at how we deal with the collision between bullets and monsters, and the fact that the monsters were destroyed and the bullets were destroyed. So what we're going to do in this video is look at how we deal with collision events between the player and the monsters. So you have to start thinking about processing when you start thinking about collision. So it's always more efficient to put the collision event on the least amount of objects. So the collision event in this case is going to be on the player object. So then we've only got one object that's being checked for collisions rather than the five or six monsters that we have in game. So it's far better to do that, because obviously the more objects you have checking for collisions, the more processing power it takes up, and then the slower the game gets as the game gets more complex. So we're going to apply a collision event on the monster. So I've set up a collision event here for the OBJ monster H. So I've just gone add event, collision, objects, and selected that. So I'm going to now take you through the two ways in which we could solve this issue. So the first simplest way is just to use a jump to the start. So if I do a movement command and I use jump to start, okay, that'll jump to the start position. So what that does, that checks the start position of my object, okay, and then when it collides with a horizontal monster, so I'll move the horizontal monster up here so that it works more quickly. Put it by there. Once it collides with the player will move back to the start, okay, but back to the start position. So let's see what happens there. Okay, so the monster's moving, so I will wait there now until the monster hits the player, and then it travels back to the start. Okay, so that's one way of dealing with it, but it doesn't really destroy the instance, destroy the monster. All it does, it moves the character back to the start. So the other way of dealing with this, or just so as you were clear, if I put the player over here and run the game, just so as you can see, it depends on where the start position of the player is on where you jump to. So if I start the game there and I come up here, I'll start, but I'll jump back to where my start position was there. Okay, so that's the first way of dealing with it. So I'm going to move my character back up here. Okay, let's go back to my workspace. The other way of dealing with it is by using the destroy event. So we're going to use the destroy event to destroy the character. So there's the destroy event. So we're going to destroy the instance, and then what we're going to do, we're going to create the instance. And what instance are we going to create? We're going to create the player object, and we're going to create the player object at x start, which is a built-in variable, and y start. Okay, so what that will do, exactly the same thing, it will destroy the current instance and then create a new instance up in at the start position. So let's run that and see how that works. There we go. Okay, so it's destroying the one instance and then moving the other instance up to the top. So that's how you deal with collisions between monsters and enemies, and we will look at how we use those collisions to deal with scores, and in the next video I'm going to show you how maybe we can move on to next levels.